Today I'll be sharing 5 tips for making wax seals. So I'm going to be giving you a few things to watch out for as you're making them. So the first things are the supplies. You're going to need some wax. I love using sealing wax that is in a glue stick format, and you need to use it with a low temp glue gun. So you can do a dual temp that you can switch it to low, or it just needs to be low temperature. So you need the wax, a way to melt it, and then you're going to need a stamp. The other way to melt sealing wax would be to use these wax beads with a spoon. I'm not going to show you tips on that today, but that would be the other way to actually melt your wax. So we have our glue stick, our glue gun, and we have a stamp, and then we need a surface to pour. So I'm using parchment paper. You could also use a silicone mat. That's a good option. If you have a baking silicone mat at home, that would work too. But I really love the parchment paper. And then all the stamps that I have here today, I got a bunch of different sizes out from my collection, and these are actually all in my online shop, begoodslettering.com. So if you are looking to get into this hobby or to get some stamps, you can definitely check that out. So the very first thing, and actually one of the things that I think is most important with making wax seals, is your temperature. So this glue gun has been plugged in for a few minutes. We're going to see if it's hot enough, and you just want to make sure that it's on low temperature. The next tip is the pour. I'm going to rest my stand on my paper, lean it forward, and I want the nozzle almost touching the parchment paper. And I'm just going to do one squeeze and a little bit more. And then I'm going to take my stamp, place it in. Let me show you how you would pour a few other of these more uniquely shaped wax seal stamps. Okay, so let's do how would you pour a rectangle. So we just want to pour the wax in kind of a rectangular shape, and because it's wax, it's not going to stay in a rectangle, but we're just going for the general shape here, and then we'd press it in. That has a unique design on it, so the edges are always really fun on that one. If I'm doing an oval shaped, then I'd want to kind of have oval shaped pour. So let's put that one in. And then the last one, I was gonna show you a mini one, which you just need a tiny bit of wax. And I have these cute mini stamps that are new in my shop. One side is a rainbow, one side is a shamrock, which I am obsessed with the minis. They're so cute. So we gotta let these cool. But so we wanna have the right temperature, we wanna have a nice pour, and the next thing is our placement. So let's talk about that. For this one, you can see it came out pretty centered. And we're gonna know that because the lip is pretty much equal around the side. An example of an uncentered one would be this, where you can see that on this side, there's a ton of extra wax on the lip, and this side has like none. So we wanna generally get the centered feeling with this one. I will say it is harder to get a centered placement with uniquely shaped stamps. So this one has a lot more wax over here and not as much over here, but still fun. And our oval shape, that one came out pretty good actually. It's pretty even on all sides. That's kind of what we're going for. And for our mini, again, pretty even on most sides. So look how cute that is. Cutest little stamp. So that's on my website, begoodslettering.com. I'm seriously so obsessed with the minis right now. But let's talk about the other thing with the placement that I just wanted to mention is that when I'm making my seals, I don't use the handle. And people ask me, like, why don't you use the handle? And because I don't want it to block my view when I'm placing it into the wax. So, and I also feel like I have more control on the placement when I'm holding close to the bottom versus if I were to use this one and I'm holding at the top, my hand is just farther away from the placement. So I just like to hold it close to the bottom to place it in. The next tip is to use pressure. So I need to add another glue stick to my gun. I'm gonna do another little rectangle one. So something that you are gonna wanna do when you place it, so you're gonna place it in, you're gonna hold it for a second and press down. So there's a little bit of movement where it can kind of wiggle, so you want to hold it in place, but you want to press down, because to get a nice impression you need the wax to go up into all the grooves and areas, and so you just want to make sure that you're using a lot of pressure. You don't want so much pressure that it's going to break the wax or like you'll push through the wax, but you just want to make sure that you're getting some nice pressure. Another reason that you want to do the pressure, let me see if I can find this example from earlier. So in this one, if you can see in the light, there's kind of these little ridges on this area that should be flat. Let's see if I can point to it better. So in here, that area should be nice and flat, but it's not, and that's because of not using enough pressure. And the last step is cooling. You're gonna know it's ready when it can pull off the parchment paper. If it easily comes up, you can also feel it. It's feeling a little bit warm, but it just pops right off. This stamp is super cute, and it's part of my wax seal club, which is an every other month subscription with a stamp and 3 sticks of sealing wax, and it's sold out in 36 hours, which I was so excited about. But you can join the wait list if you get into wax seal making. So again, I can pull it up. It came off the parchment paper, so it's probably cool enough, and it came off. It's super cute. How cute is that? The other thing that can happen is sometimes if your stamp gets too hot, say I'm making like 50 and I'm only using this design, sometimes the metal will get really hot. So what you can do is put it on an ice pack to kind of cool it down, like make 2 or 3 and then put it back on the ice pack to make more, to kind of cool that metal down. Because what will happen is if it does get too hot, you won't be able to get this wax off. It'll just be stuck to it. So, and the same if the wax is too hot to start with, it'll take longer to cool, and therefore it will take longer to come off. A couple more things to watch out for with temperature. This was an example that I had done earlier, and you can see that the lip is so much wider on this one because the wax was so hot. And you can also see there's little bubbles in here. And so if you see a bunch of bubbles, that's usually an indication that it's too hot. Some examples like this one, there is one little bubble here, but it's only one, and so I think that sometimes can happen just based on the stamp design. You'll get that, but the wax may have been a little bit too hot on this one too. But when you're seeing multiple bubbles around here, you know it's too hot, and you can see it's just too runny. The other thing that you can tell is just, if you look at it this way, this one's just a lot more flat, where this one has a little bit more like billowiness to it. Anyway, so those are the tips. Temperature, you want to use low temp. You want to get a nice pour that's the shape of your stamp. So if you're doing oval, do an oval pour. If you're doing rectangle, do a rectangle pour, etc. You want to have placement that's nice, so I take the handles off and try to get right in the center. Pressure, make sure to be pressing down so that you can avoid like the little ridges on the inside, and then just make sure it's all the way cool before you take it off, and you'll have some super gorgeous wax seals. So if you love wax seals and you want to learn more about them, go ahead and follow me on this channel. I guess subscribe is what it's called. I just barely started this channel, so thank you everyone who ever watches this. But yeah, I love wax seals, and I'm excited to share more tips and tricks in the coming weeks.